I want to start out with a basic introduction to Google Drive and Google Workspace. Now, Google Workspace used to be known as G Suite. It is the suite of productivity applications that's offered to us by Google, such as Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides. A suite of applications is just a group of pieces of software that are related to each other and are usually collected together into some kind of package. Different suites of applications are geared toward different goals, such as Adobe Creative Suite, which is used for graphics and video production. G Suite is what is known as productivity software. It's the sort of thing you might have used in school or at the office. The most recognizable examples of that are MS Office and LibreOffice if you're a Linux user. Or MS Works if you want a less recognizable throwback. Productivity Suite is almost always going to contain some kind of word processor, some kind of spreadsheet program, and some kind of presentation program like Slides or Keynote or Microsoft PowerPoint. Other possibilities include a database, note-taking software such as Microsoft OneNote, a graphics creation tool like MS Paint on the very basic side. In this next section, we're going to talk a little bit about understanding Google Workspace. The thing that makes Google Drive and Google Workspace seem really confusing to newbies is that it seems to be very different from the productivity suites we're used to, like Microsoft Office or LibreOffice. When we use Microsoft Word, we're using a piece of software that exists on our computer to manipulate documents that also exist on our computer, versus Google Docs, which we use in a browser to manipulate documents that exist in the cloud. This might leave you wondering, what is the cloud anyway? Well, don't worry, we're going to get to that. So to get past this obstacle, let's boil things down to their very simplest components. This is probably going to seem pedantic to a lot of you, but bear with me. Let's look at creating a document with a word processor. The very basics. We have some word processing software. You're going to enter some text. The document you're typing that text into is stored on a disk. You can see the document on your screen. So those are the very basics. And of course, there's all kinds of operations like saving and formatting. That's pretty complicated. We're not going to worry about that right at this moment. So to apply those basics to Microsoft Word, you've got some word processing software, which is Microsoft Word. You are typing into your keyboard. The document is stored on your hard drive, and your monitor is displaying the document contents. Now we're going to take a brief interlude to talk about websites and apps for a moment, and the reasons for taking this little left turn here are going to become clear in just a few moments. So, websites and apps. App is short for application. It's a piece of software that does a specific thing. Historically, when we said app, we were usually talking about mobile apps, the sort of thing you'd use on your phone or on your iPad or other tablet. Nowadays, the abbreviation app is used more broadly to refer to other kinds of software, including the productivity software that we've been discussing. So we could call Microsoft Word an app, and that would not be incorrect. Okay, but what about websites? Many websites communicate information like documents do in formatted text and pictures. And some other websites have more features, more functionality, such as information retrieval, the sort of thing you might find on Amazon.com or another shopping platform. There are websites that provide calculators for various things, games are another example, etc. So let's take a look at example.com, which is a very basic example of a website. This looks like a basic document with formatted text. But if we look at the website source, we can see that there is code underneath it. That code is stored on a web server. And broadly speaking, a server is just a computer that is connected to the internet. That code is rendered by the web browser to show us this document that we see, example.com. Now, there are disagreements amongst programmers about whether or not HTML, which is the language that is used to render web pages, constitutes a programming language. We're not going to get into the specific semantics of that right now. What I want you to take away from this is that every website you have ever visited, from the most basic document to the most complicated shopping platform or game, is an app. Websites are apps. Many websites that just render text are very simple apps. It's an app that has one function, to render some text, maybe show us some pictures. A game has a lot of other functions that we could maybe more easily understand as an app. But once again, for the folks in the back, every website is an app. Now, you could be excused for asking yourself why I've spent so long on this explanation. To answer that question, let's go back to our word processor example. So to review, we've got the basics. We've got some word processing software. You're entering some text. The document you're typing is stored on a disk. You can see that document on your screen. So now let's look at Google Docs. Google Docs is the word processing software. You're typing into your keyboard just like before. That document is stored on a server, and you can view the document using your monitor, but it's rendered inside the web browser window. Okay, I promised you I'd tell you what the cloud was. We're going to talk about that now. Many of you are going to be very disappointed. Broadly speaking, the cloud is just a bunch of servers connected to the internet. Those servers can be accessed basically anywhere that you have an internet connection. Google Workspace is an example of a cloud service, as is iCloud, Dropbox, OneDrive, and many others. It's just another computer. It just doesn't happen to be on your desk. So let's come back to the difference between using a local suite of software such as LibreOffice or Microsoft Office and using a cloud-based suite of software such as Google Workspace. For our purposes, for your purposes as you begin your work with the Presbytery committees, the only real difference is going to be where the documents are stored. With a local suite of applications, such as LibreOffice or MS Office, they're stored on our own hard drives in the computer that's sitting on our desk or lap or dining room table or whatever. And with cloud suites, they're stored on a server. Now, since we're using our computer to access them either way, the difference between those things is probably not as big as you might have gone into this thinking. There are differences, of course. For using a cloud-based suite of applications, you almost always need an internet connection to do so. There are some exceptions to this, and we might get into that in some of the later, more advanced videos. File management tools and techniques change a little bit, but not much. Oh yeah, and the software and documents are available basically anywhere you have access to the internet and a web browser, and collaboration can occur in real time. So those are two pretty significant advantages over using entirely locally stored suites of applications such as MS Office. Okay, but what about Google Drive? Google Drive is a file management tool that connects the various pieces of Google Workspace together. It's similar to the file management tools in Windows or Mac. It's just the way you click around to folders to find and move your files around. So that pretty much does it for the basic introduction to Google Drive and Google Workspace. Now I realize this was a pretty explanation-heavy video, but what I'm hoping is that you got a better picture of what these applications, what these tools actually are, how they work, and how the differences between them and the things that you're already used to using are not as significant or daunting as you may have gone into this thinking.